Hey guys, welcome to the initial live stream on the Salty Ginger podcast. It's funny, before we got on here, me and my producer were looking at the growth of the podcast, and it's wild from where we started. We're over 500,000 views now, approaching 20,000 subscribers, and really excited about the growth of the channel. Our channel is entirely about getting people to live meaningful, purposeful lives, to think critically, to really be intentional about what they spend their time and energy on. And so we have awesome guests on that talk about a wide variety of topics around those things. And we thought a live stream would be a good way for us to go. And this is our initial one. And we picked one of our favorite guests and personal friend as well to join us on our initial live stream. His name is Ayush Prakash. He's been on our podcast several times. He has his own podcast, which is self-named, eponymous. It's the Ayush Prakash on YouTube. He's an author, super smart guy. And we just love having conversations with him, largely because he thinks about things differently than we do. And it expands our mind and makes us think a little bit. So we're going to have a conversation with Ayush around several topics tonight. And we're glad that you joined us on the live stream. Feel free to put comments and or questions in. Our producer can feed those to us, and we can take on your comments and your thoughts and or questions live on the live stream. So without further ado, let's bring Ayush in now. There he is, my friend Ayush. How are you, buddy?
Very good, Joe. Happy New Year to you and your audience. It's great to see you.
Yeah, great to see you too, and Happy New Year to you. I was just singing your praises before you came on, talked about your podcast, talk about you being a prolific author, loving writing and loving expressing your thoughts in written word. And, that we've developed a great relationship since we've gotten to know each other. And really excited to have you on the first episode of the Salty Ginger live stream. So super excited about it.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. It's an interesting time, right? Number one is that you and I are from different generations, and so we can grapple with ideas and exchange them and disagree, but the disagreement is going to come from different angles, and so it unpacks in a different way. And also the live stream. I mean, you and I are both podcasters, so we have a lot of experience having those long form conversations. But there is something special about it being live and people tuning in live and being a part of that. It feels like you're actually around the campfire and listening to two people talk. I'm not an elder yet. I don't even consider you an elder, but the elders of the campfire, of the tribe, as you will. So it's a fun time, and yeah, wherever you want to go, I'm down.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you excluding me from the elder category. Bonus points for excluding me from the elder category. Although I think I probably could fit in there technically. I don't feel like I should be in the elder category, but it's probably fair either way you want to look at it. I'm very immature, but I'm also old enough to fit into that category. So
for sure. I don't know whether it's the salty or the ginger part, but we press on.
Exactly. You play the hand you're dealt to the best of your abilities, right?
Absolutely. There we go.
It's funny. I was telling the audience before you came on, it's wild to me. We were looking at the growth on our channel, and I'm very similar to you. I don't do this at all. I'm not looking to be famous. I'm not looking to get rich. If either of those things happened, whatever, I could care less. We want as many people as possible thinking critically and living lives of meaning and purpose, because I think the world will be a better place if every person individually takes that approach about their own life and is thoughtful and intentional about where they spend their time and energy. But with that said, seeing the growth is really exciting because we're connecting with people that think like you and I do, because you share all of the sentiments that I just shared, in addition to every other thing you bring to the table. And, our channel's got over 500,000 views now, which is wild.
Wow. Congrats.
Yeah. Congrats. Thanks. Approaching 20,000 subscribers. We may be there by the end of the month. And it's just crazy to me from where we started. Yeah. So, and it's because we have conversations with people like you, right? We want people thinking. So along those lines, I've got a couple things I want to talk about, and then I certainly want to open the floor to you if there's anything that's really burning a hole in your brain right now. But I kind of look around, and so for what it's worth, Ayush is in Canada, but he's very familiar. I don't know if you're physically still in Canada, but he's Canadian. But he's very familiar and spent a lot of time in the US and has a lot of friends in the US and very familiar with US issues. And so like Minneapolis is kind of on fire yet again. There was a woman who decided to insert herself into law enforcement operations and was tragically killed as an outcome of that. I don't know how to think about that because I don't think I have all of the information. I do know it's tragic that woman lost her life. And the part that struck me is how many people were so cold about it. Like, hey, she got what she deserved. Like, really? Did she really? I find it very hard to be so dismissive and cold towards the loss of life. And then, I hear people talking about we want to kill ICE agents, and that just makes me think. It just makes me wonder: is it because we have social media now we can see these reactions, or if people always had these reactions? And why does it seem like we're struggling with coping skills right now collectively, like just as a people? What are your thoughts on that?
It's rest in peace to the woman that was tragically killed, Renee Good, I believe.
Yep, that's right.
It's one of those things that I've also struggled to comprehend, because death is such an in-your-face thing. Like if you were, I've never personally dealt with relatives dying. I mean, I don't have any grandparents, but I never really had a relationship with them. No, I think I'm back. But I never had any relationship with my grandparents, so it wasn't necessarily something where I experienced death at an arm's reach. But I've been dealing with death, I mean, ever since I was 10, because I had access to YouTube, right? And so I was able to see death across a wide variety of things. I mean, my first real interaction with death was like when Steve Jobs died, and my dad just like freaked the fuck out. And I was like, I don't really understand, because we never knew him. He was never a friend. Like, it doesn't really make any sense. But for some reason, the publicity of a death, especially the visionary that dies, has a real effect on us. And then growing up, we're playing video games. We have friends whose family members die and all of that. And so on the one hand, I can understand the kind of coldness because we experience death on a completely different level. On the other hand, though, for some reason, we've completely killed, ironic sentence, but we've completely killed our ability to understand the human behind the action. And we've like severed the relationship between how we perceive it and how everyone else perceives it, and how we should perceive it, if that makes any sense. And so, especially for my generation, I mean, I don't necessarily just think about Renee Good. I think about also the Charlie Kirk assassination, where people were making kind of music videos about his death, and creating memes around the very graphic video being circulated. So this is kind of a non-answer, but I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised. I also, as a real bad tangent towards the end of the monologue, I think about the movie The Purge, and it feels like society is really going in that direction. But yeah, it surprises me, but at the same time, it on the other hand surprises me that it's not super far, that these reactions are just kind of tame compared to what I expected. What were your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I just I can't help but think. So first, I don't think these reactions are new. I think it's been very similar. I mean, when you think about things like the French Revolution, or gladiators in ancient Rome, or the Battle of Thermopylae, right? So there's been instances in the past where there's been, horrible clashes, horrible loss of life, and people kind of discount it or aggrandize it. And so I think it's in our nature to have kind of a bloodlust. I feel like because we've got so many ways to share it now, people aren't very good at taking a beat and saying, hey, maybe I shouldn't whip out my phone and videotape my initial visceral reaction and put it out for the world to see. It's just been my experience in life. And look, I'm 54, and all that means is I got 54 years of experience. That doesn't mean I'm smarter or dumber than anybody. It just means I've been around and I've experienced more than someone that's 30, let's say.
Mhm.
And what I've learned is when you react from a place of emotion, it seems like more often than not, after cooler heads prevail, you're disappointed in your initial reaction. And it's
Mm.
probably not something you want to share with the rest
Yeah,
of the world, good or bad, right? Because,
for sure.
like, to me, there's nothing, it's just as I don't like sore winners as much as I don't like sore losers. Like people
Right.
that gloat and rub it in people's faces. That's never been a thing for me. My background, I was pretty competitive athletics for a large part of my life. And like baseball now, someone hits a home run, they flip their bat and they take 45 seconds to get around the bases. When I was playing, if that happened, you were gonna get drilled. Like there was no question about what was going to happen the next time like you came to the plate. You were going to wear one right between the numbers, and
Mhm.
rightfully so. And I hit a lot of home runs, and I was a pitcher, and so I was on both sides of that transaction. I hit lots of balls out of the park. I'd have lots of balls hit out of the park off of me, and I knew
Mm.
what it was like to either be in the batter's box or on the mound. And as a hitter, I got around the bases quick. I put my head down. Plus, I think there's in that situation, there's something about acting like you've been there before. Like, I'm not surprised that I hit a home run. It's kind of what I should be doing if things are going good for me. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not new to this scenario. I'm pretty successful at this. Um, and so this willingness for people to allow their emotions to rule their thoughts and reactions, I think is a big part of the problems that we face in society today. We excuse those reactions and emotions as that's just how I am. No, it's
Yeah.
not just how you are. At
100%.
least that's the way I think about it. Like if you were a kid and you reacted that way, I would make you go sit on your bed till you had a better attitude. But
Mhm.
you're an adult, and like this is people that run companies, this is people that teach children, this is people that work in law enforcement. Like it's all over the place. People in positions of pretty significant power that don't seem to have regulation and coping skills that I would expect an adult to have, and it's
Right.
crazy to me. And I'm trying to figure out what's driving it. That's where the line of conversation, at least where I'm looking
Mhm.
to take the line of conversation. I think a lot of it has to do with social media,
For sure.
like the willingness. I don't understand the desire to be famous. I've never understood the desire to be famous. That looks like a terrible existence to me.
For sure. With social media, there's a collapsed proximity to fame. So one of the things that happened with TikTok in 2020 is that there was such an easy way to be famous. You post a couple TikToks doing a stupid fucking dance, and you can go viral within the next 5 days, right? And that's what people did. And so a lot of those early content creators, they got hundreds of thousands to millions of followers, not views, but followers
Mm.
from doing that. And so it completely skews that that mental representation in their heads. When Ben Shapiro says facts don't care about your feelings, it's this really pithy statement, and there's a reason why it went viral. But it he focuses on the wrong thing, I believe. Or maybe in this context, we can focus on the other part, which is the feelings. Why are feelings so important in this day and age? And it's because we've equated our thoughts with our feelings and vice versa. So if I feel a certain way, I don't necessarily need to think about it. Going back to your critical thinking portion, I can just put that out there and I equate the feeling that I have with the logicality of the thought. And so that's why you see people on social media saying things that literally make no sense because it doesn't need to make sense up here. It makes sense for their sentience, right? Their sapience hasn't really come on yet because they're not trained. The Greeks, I believe they had like this arc to life. Like they were a soldier, then they came back home and they were like a business person, and then they went into government, then they were a philosopher after, and they had this nice arc of life. We don't have any of that. We had a kind of algorithm, like there was the Millionaire Next Door, I think, published in the 80s or 90s, that kind of detailed the American dream in that way. You could go to school and go to college and not be in debt for the rest of your life, find a lady, um, have a family, buy a house, retire at 65, live your best life. That was kind of the end all be all for that American lifestyle. and there was an algorithm. I didn't have to worry about the future. I kind of expected it. My neighbor lived it, their neighbor lived it, my parents lived it. I'm going to get my kids to live it, no problem. Now there is no algorithm to life. We're all terribly confused at not just what the future looks like and our role in it, but what is the role in my relationship? What is the role between me and my parents? What is the role between my friends and I? What is the role for me on social media? And so with that confusion comes a lot of people trying to fill in the gaps. And so then you get the Andrew Tates, you get the Nick Fuenteses, you get the Trumps, you get the whoever trying to give this framework to people. And then again, coming back to it, that's why I care more about my feeling, because if I'm not thinking correctly and my thinking is kind of skewed because of social media and such, all I have left are the feelings that I have. Even though my feelings are tied to what I understand, that's all I have left is how do I feel about this certain issue? And feelings will come far fast, like be generated far faster than a thought, just the basis of sentience. And
Yep.
so at the end of the day, my uh like the impulsivity that I have for expressing that feeling, especially with the collapsed friction for getting into the public square on X or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, then we kind of begin, this is not a full-fledged explanation, but we kind of begin to understand how people are operating. Because Joe cuts me off in traffic and I'm going to give him the finger, but then I'm going to go home and this fucking white guy cut me off in traffic. And now that gets 100,000 views. Whereas it was just one interaction before and I would come in and be like, this fucking guy, I would never mention white. This fucking guy cut me off in traffic. Well, now I'm going online and I need to get the views. And so I'm going to mention this white male cut me off in traffic. And now I'm putting that anger out there. So the next time any of the viewers goes and gets cut off into traffic, they're like, oh, white male. And you can abstract this and apply it to any Asian, black,
Yeah.
brown, purple, whatever you want. And then like this happens ad nauseum across billions of interactions. And so then all of that boils into like an ICE agent killing, I don't know the ethnicity of Renee Good, but I'm assuming that she was a minority in some way.
She was not.
Oh, she was white.
Yeah.
No way. Okay, that's interesting. But anyway, the ICE agent.
She was a lesbian, so
I mean, unless she was eating some stuff in the car, I don't know about. I don't mean to make any joke about that, but like, I don't know how he would have known.
Bring that up is it's largely viewed as a minority or protected or discriminated against class of person. That's the only reason I bring it up.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's interesting. That's probably a good thing. Maybe she had like an LGBT flag on her car. I don't know. I haven't seen any of the footage, but that's kind of where we get to are these pieces of violence and these moments of history that we are living through that don't really make sense. And there's no real rhyme or reason for it to have been generated, because the actual explanation is like, a multi-decade, 12-step interaction. And so it's quite difficult to unpack, but that's how I see it happening, is these small moments that begin to diffuse into culture, then they become the bedrock of how people experience the world, and then we get these moments.
Yeah, all great points. I think that's a really well thought out way to look at it. Going up a couple of levels, part of this whole situation of her getting shot, there seems to be more and more groups or organizations or people that are trying to organize and push a particular view. And this is across the political spectrum. This is not the left or the right. Both do it. They do it on different things in different ways, but they're trying to control what people think and control how people react. So like this woman, from what I've read, she was married in a heterosexual relationship. Her husband passed away, at which point she met a woman who she was in a long-term relationship. They tried to say they were married, but they were not. But it sounded better if it was her wife that was with her instead of her partner. And so, but she had a 6-year-old kid. And she
Mm,
was part of a group that was intentionally following ICE and trying to disrupt their
mm,
activities. Like, I can't imagine being in that. And it doesn't matter. Let's just say that, let's use a right leaning example too. Let's say I wanted to go um, argue with women going into an abortion clinic and
mhm,
leave. I'm not arguing for or against abortion, not my point. Just there's another example of someone who is dedicated to go out of their way, take time out of their life, do something to influence the way other people think or act,
mhm.
that disagree with them. And there seems to be more and more of that. And I don't know. I don't think that's new, but I think it's a lot easier to do now. Like you and me talking right now, right? We're literally in different countries, in different time zones, et cetera, et cetera. But we're able to put this together that we're doing, and we can communicate and exchange ideas and have a healthy conversation. A lot of people are using that to push agendas that I don't think have the long term good of humanity anywhere near the center of their thesis. Um, but so many people seem to be susceptible to that. It's almost like to me it's replacing religion in a lot of instances. So
For
we've seen
sure.
kind of a decline in religion, regardless of whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, Sikhism. I'm not. It's not non-denominational, but there
Mm,
seems to be, at least in our country, a turn away from that. And as people have turned away from organized, and by the way, organized religion has its problems. Let me just state unequivocally that the two largest organizations that have done the worst things in the world are governments and religions. Like, it's
mhm.
not even close. Just a number term of people that have been killed or uh, uh, subjugated or whatever you want to call it. Right, the terrible things have been done in the name of both government and religion. However, there is something to be said. A lot of people need a structure from which to operate in, and at their core, the major religions in the world all try to preach good things. If someone doesn't bastardize it and put their own spin on it,
Mhm.
be good to people, care about other people, don't, screw with your neighbor, treat people with kindness. Those are all good things. Those are all good things. And those don't exist anymore in a lot of people's lives. So they look for another framework. And I think it's very similar, like you talking about the Andrew Tates or the Donald Trumps or whatever mouthpiece there is,
Yeah.
that's in your ear saying, this is how you should live. This is how you should live. This is how you should live.
Yeah.
Um, we seem to be more susceptible to it now. And I think it's problematic for our society.
100%. You know, I'm just thinking about her kid, and not just the fact that the kid lost his or her mom, but the fact that now not only will the kid be subject to w- being not being forced, but potentially watching that video of his or her mom being killed so many times, but there's also the other layer of, like, people are going to use that video to fucking bully that kid.
Mm,
That's the dark, dark side of the internet. People are gonna make memes and everything, and just I don't even want to think about that. But man, many thoughts come to that. So number one is, she was part of the group that were following and disrupting the ICE agents and such, and that's a pretty American thing to do. I don't mean that facetiously. Like, the America was founded on fucking off government tyranny. And how, whether you think, like, whatever your political view is on ICE, what she thought was government tyranny, she was trying to disrupt that. And so, more power to her on that front. In some way, ICE was also responding to government tyranny. So that's also a perspective that we have to, uh, I don't think we need to respect that per se, but I think we need to acknowledge it, that they were kind of upholding, or not upholding, but they were also protecting government tyranny in some way,
mm,
um, or preventing it. So that is a really important dichotomy that I would like people to talk about more. There's there's this idea that it's very difficult for you and I to talk about these things because, again, we have to take care of people's feelings beforehand, and we can't just speak. Like, for example, on LinkedIn, I saw this guy apologizing for calling the CEOs of these big AI companies cockroaches. And I was kind of confused because I don't really know what we're apologizing for. I mean, you know, sure, I mean, you don't want to be called a cockroach, but I thought this was a free country with free speech, right?
Right.
And then we can get into like what is free speech and all of that. I don't know. I just feel like there's this real confusion of what America is right now. That's a really interesting conversation because again, one of our first conversations that you and I had, we were talking about the Constitution. I don't necessarily think people have read it inside America en masse. I've read
They've,
it like 3 or 4
you're
times.
100% correct. They don't know it.
They
Like
don't know it.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the Constitution is there a right to protest. That does not exist in the
Interesting.
Constitution. You have the right to peaceably assemble, and you have the right to free speech. And if you want to combine those two, you can peaceably assemble somewhere and voice your opinion. You don't have any right to protest. It does not exist in the Constitution. That's just false. Like
Mm.
it doesn't exist. So
And
you
and and
have a
going,
right to protest. No, you don't.
yeah, and kind of extending that, you know, like not even be political right now. If you know who Paul Rosalie is, the Jungle Keeper, the Amazon guy, he's coming out with a new book soon. He's just this crazy New York guy that goes to the Amazon and catches snakes and crocodiles and kind of posts them on Instagram. Anybody that's interested, search up Paul Rosalie. He's trying to save the Amazon. Fantastic person. You would love to interview him. I'm trying to get him on my podcast. If that happens, I'm going to drive him to you.
Nice.
But anyway, he's fully in complete like understanding that if he goes to the Amazon, there's like a non-zero and probably not even a non-sub 50% chance he's gonna die.
Right.
Because it's not just like, people just think it's like the anacondas and the crocodiles. And it's not just that. It's like the mosquitoes, the botflies, it's the trees that have spikes one way instead of the other way. It's the killer hornets. It's, all of these different things that can kill you. It's a jungle. And he completely understands that side of it. He understands the risk and he's still willing to take that risk constantly. But if he were to die tomorrow, I don't think anybody would be surprised. Even he wouldn't be surprised. He'd be like, yeah, I tried to pick up a fucking bushmaster snake. That makes sense that I'm dead. Right? He's in complete understanding. And so for me, I'm also not in understanding that for folks that are trying to disrupt ICE agents and you have all this information, or folks that are trying to disrupt anything where there is armed conflict about to happen or happening, why are we surprised that something terrible has happened? It's either you didn't believe that it was going to happen, you didn't expect that it was going to happen, or you're just very ignorant. And I'm not calling Renee Good ignorant, but I'm just saying in terms of the broader societal reaction, isn't that like, didn't you expect that to happen? Because on the one hand, you're calling all of the ICE people like terrorists and fascists and Nazis. But if you're calling them Nazis, then you clearly understand what the Nazis did to people that disagreed with them, right? And so, like, it feels like there's a lot of people that are struggling with A and not A, and I don't know really how to have that conversation with them. It feels like this lost cause of, yeah, you have a really strong perspective on it. Is there a bit of nuance that can be had, or are we just going to focus on one thing and not something else? Am I frozen or is he frozen? Our friend Joe is frozen right now. All right, cool. I mean, we can continue going. There's also this idea of kind of societal pressure I feel, uh, kind of being in a social pressure pot. For me especially, the social pressure pot has been something of a like the frog is not just continuously boiling, but is like the water is almost going over. I remember one of my friends earlier this year is like, I wouldn't really be surprised if World War III were to pop off. And I always had this kind of vitriolic reaction towards that. Like, how the fuck can you just be nonchalant about 5 billion people perishing? And it feels like it's literally because we're constantly talking about the worst things that can happen. Like, in 2011, Nick Bostrom released a kind of like a quasi textbook, I think, called Global Catastrophic Risks, which is a really fascinating book. It details everything from nuclear war to super intelligent AI to like biotechnological disasters, nanotechnological disasters, and everything in between. And as I was talking to people about it, nobody looked at me like I was crazy, which I found very, very interesting. People just looked at me like, yeah, that makes sense. It makes sense that it would happen now, and it would make sense what that it would happen in general because humans just are not a species that can plan. But I don't know. There's and especially with young people, they have no faith in the world. When I tell them like, World War III could pop off with, China invading Taiwan by 2027, for example. And they just look at me like, yeah, that makes sense. There's nothing I can do about that. And my response is, well, aren't you worried? Don't you want to plan? Don't you want to try to figure that out? Um, aren't you interested in the geopolitics of how we got here? And more, I just find that people want to be left alone and just live. They're really not interested in, we talk about the really big things like World War III and such. It's not just that. It's like AI right now, very, very hot topic. And people just don't want to deal with that stuff. They just want to live. And so when stuff like this Renee Good thing that Renee Good tragedy that happens, I guess people are completely numb to it. Another thing to deal with, another thing to be politically divisive about, another thing that's going to rupture the country, to contribute to more polarization, contribute to more violence, contribute to more hate, contribute to a worser algorithm in a respectful way. I just don't think people are able to tolerate much, much more. Now, regardless of your feelings on, what the president is doing or saying, regardless of, your feelings of where the country is at right now, there's this dismissal, I guess, interpersonally of where the average person is at emotionally and mentally. I think everybody's checked out. At least, we can talk more about that when Joe comes back. But the average person, I think, just is unable to deal with any more, tomfoolery, as it were. I know I am. I know that there's this numbness that I feel reading about anything to do with major geopolitical things, major technological risks, political and social upheavals, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like this Plague Inc. simulator. If anybody knows the game Plague Inc., that's this kind of like this virus game where you can create your own virus and you have to infect the world. I sound sadistic right now. And there's like always this news on top, and they have like the craziest, like the onion pieces level of AI generated stuff. Like Greenland takes over Europe or something insane like that. And it starts to feel closer to home whenever the actual real world aligns with Plague Inc. And you're just feeling like there's more of a simulation going on, which again, as these things get crazier and crazier, you start turning to more to conspiracy theories and such. And so I highly, highly suspect that Most people are not just going to check out from this reality, but they're going to go more towards conspiracy theories. They're going to go more towards not believing objective truth, if we can say that respectfully, and going towards their subjective bubble, or going deeper into that subjective bubble. That's I think that's only going to be fueled more by algorithms and such. And that's going to be a pretty scary thing when you're not just unable to talk to somebody about an issue that is on the other side of their political understanding. You're going to be unable to talk to them that outside of their literal kind of knowledge bubble, outside of their world model in a technical sense. I'm starting to see that with not my friends, but people of my generation. I'm definitely starting to see that with older generations like Gen X, the silent generation, baby boomers a little bit. I'm starting to see this be generated in Generation Alpha, which is another thing that I would love to talk to Joe about, which is how young people are being completely and utterly like fucked over right now when it comes to development. So now he has a, a handful of kids. It's a pretty terrifying thing. For me, I don't know. For me, like if I were to have a kid right now, I don't really know what I would do. I definitely would not put him or her. I want a daughter, so I would not put her through public school. But I don't have any time to actually parent her. It also is a pretty terrifying thing to not have a partner locked down and feel like you have to raise a child by yourself. I can only imagine. Um, do I trust the women of my generation? Not really. I guess that's another conversation. Um, but to have a kid and to bring them into this world, no, no bueno, no bueno. It would be a difficult thing, not just because I'm super immature still. It would be a pretty difficult thing because, you know, how do I explain to them what's going on in the world? Like, for example, grocery prices. If I'm unable to feed them one night, just for example, how do I explain that to them? Do I just explain to them inflation? You know, um, how do I explain to them that we're going to go back home to live with mom and dad because I can't afford rent because my wages haven't gone up? Just stuff like that. There's no rule book. And so living in an incredibly turbulent time, you really don't want to have kids. And that is also a really big issue because if you're not having kids in the turbulent time, then when peacetime happens, there are not enough people to actually partake in peacetime. And so you have to make that sacrifice and be able to live with the consequences of um, not being able to parent in the way that you really do want to. So yeah, that's my monologue, I guess. That's my TED talk. I hope it made sense. There's this idea also of you know, your parents being also this is the first time that they've lived as well. It's a it's something that I think we should all take into account, which is maybe I save that for another time. Ah, okay, I'll keep going. Um, when your parents are getting pissy at you or they don't simply understand something. Like my parents don't understand a certain amount of things that I try to explain to them. They get very stubborn and stuck in their ways, and I get very frustrated because I'm the type of son where, like my dad, for example, he wanted to improve his sleep, and I was like, great, I'll read you Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and I'll read you all 300 pages of that book. Excuse me. He said no. I said, I'll give you the podcast. He said no. I said, I'll sit through the podcast and the book and I'll make notes and I'll deliver them to you. Like we can go for a coffee chat and I'll give that to you. He said no. So every single time that I was trying to help him, he was just not receptive. And that was a pretty difficult thing to accept until I accepted that, people are only going to change if they want to change. you can never really force anybody to change. And so coming back to my parents again, when they're struggling with understanding something or just unable to understand something, there's this part of me that is a very blunt part where I try to just kind of like either you get it or you don't. Like, let's not be idiots at this point. But then there's the other more empathetic and the non-impulsive part, coming back to the earlier part of the conversation, where, you know, I have to just accept that they're going to figure it out by themselves. And the reason I bring this up, not just to be, not just to fill the airtime, but the reason I bring it up is because I really do think that we need to have that trust in society at large, because society is just comprised of the individuals um, that make it up. And if we were to have that trust in society that we're going to figure it out, I think it would go a real long way to us actually figuring it out. There seems like there's this almost nihilistic sense for everybody where we want things to work out, but at the same time, we don't expect them to. And I think that energy of us not expecting it to work out transfers across much more than um, us wanting it to work out. In my first book, I was saying that I think the more we talk about what future we want, the more likely we are to build the future that we deserve. I still think that's true, albeit there is the nuance, or there is the caveat of, we can talk about what future we want, but is the other person speaking the same language? And that's not like a US versus China thing. That's more of like a, again, when your world model is becoming incredibly subjective and incredibly siloed into one way of thinking, then your reality and your ability to perceive language literally changes. It's a neurological, I think, sorry, neuropsychological thing. And so if that happens en masse and we have people literally running not different mental algorithms, but with different brain structures, interacting with the world and trying to, steer the same ship, but just in a different direction because they're seeing different icebergs, then that also becomes problematic. I would want somebody, honestly, to do a book or a case study on how America grew, and also what is missing from the blueprint of, um, 1776 America versus contemporary America. That, I think that's a fascinating exploration, and it would detail what gaps we need to fill. Because if it's just communication, or if it's just political, or if it's a combination of the two, and we can use technology as a gap filler, then we can start figuring out, okay, maybe we need these amounts of entrepreneurs to figure it out, like they did in Taiwan, for example. But if we're not able to have these honest conversations with ourselves, and we're completely, dependent on other people telling us exactly what to think, how to think, etc., you know, I struggle with believing that the country can continue as we want it to. And this is the other thing. I mean, I know a lot of people are not a fan of America right now, and I can understand why completely in terms of a reputation thing. But at the same time, it feels like, when you're down, everybody piles on, and when you're up, everybody loves you. It feels like the exact same thing. When America is doing well, everybody thanks their lucky stars. When America is doing well, everybody's saying, "Yep, this is the greatest country on earth. This is exactly what we need. Thank God America exists because it upholds values and freedoms in a way that no country can," which is true. But when America is down, when the reputation is not there, everybody somehow piles on and says, "I told you so. America is shit. We don't like Americans, etc., etc." And I've never really understood that point. It's either you like America or you don't like America, but you can't flip flop between, because it doesn't make any sense. If America is up and you think that Americans are fascists, that just means that a fascist country is up, right? And the same thing on the flip side, if you don't like America, or if you like America and America is down, those values and freedoms are still being upheld in some way. just maybe not to the extent that we want. It's a when 2100 rolls around and hopefully America is still standing, I would love to see how different history books depict what this current time is. Are they going to talk about America being fascist since 2016 and like go through that route? Are they going to talk about a strongman? Are they going to talk about like just turbulent years for an empire? It would be an interesting, again, exploration for how the present moment is perceived in the future. That to me is always interesting because, for me, I'll hold off as we get our wonderful host and friend back.
Technical difficulties. So I could hear almost everything that you were talking about, Ayush, and I appreciate your ability to just carry a conversation on your own. One of the reasons I love you.
Gotcha, man. I love you too.
Yeah, look, I appreciate you actually headed a direction I was hoping to head, which was so as people tend to live longer and longer, we've got all of these generations living together, right? And you and I are a perfect example of it, right? So I'm 54. You're what, 26, I think?
24, yeah.
24, okay, yeah. So you grew up in a totally different world than I did. So you were born in 2002, 2001, 2002, somewhere in there. Yeah. I had 3 kids by the time you were born, and yeah. I had gone from I remember vividly when our house got a microwave. That was a big deal. Yeah. We got a microwave oven in our house. I was 8 years old. It was 1980.
Gangster.
And I remember getting our first VCR. I remember having to get to the bank before it closed on Friday because you literally had no money. And if you didn't have money, you couldn't buy things on the weekend because there was no ATMs, all of those things, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, the way I approach dating is 1,000% different than the way you approach dating. And my sons are all about your age. So I've got 31, 28, and 26 are my sons, right? So the way I searched for a job was completely different. When I was young, you put on good clothes, you went out and knocked on doors and introduced yourself, literally with a resume in your hand. Or you called and said, "Hey, I saw you had a job post that I'd like to apply for it. How do I do that?" Mm-hmm. And you literally can't talk to a live person anymore to mm-hmm. apply for a job. Like most companies, there is no way to talk to a live person. And so you'd talked at length about your generation feeling kind of distrustful and screwed over. And I understand that. I understand why you would feel that way. And you're not able to have the same draw from the same experiences that I'm able to draw from, for most of the 70s and 80s, Russia was a legitimate threat to the world from our perspective. Like, we were both going to launch nuclear weapons at each other and create a nuclear wasteland and destroy humanity and the planet and all of those things. And then in 1989, all of it was gone. Like, the Berlin Wall fell and communism crumbled. And so that's why when we hear young people talking about socialism, communism, we're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
For sure.
We spent 20 years getting rid of this shit. Are you fucking psycho? Why do you want to bring this thing back? Because we saw what it did. But like, if you don't have those perspectives and the only thing you have is what I just talked about, like, cool story, bro. Like, I can't get a job. I can't buy groceries. I have to decide between groceries and rent because I'm still making what you made in 1994 at your first job, but it's 2026. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but groceries are now 80% more expensive than they were when you were just starting out on your own and bootstrapping in 1994. And those are both legitimate perspectives. And I think people have a tendency to defend, back in my day, whatever. It's not your day anymore. Like, it's just not. For sure. It's not how the world exists. But I do think we have a responsibility to work together to try to create something that works for everybody, And this, to me, this is how it happens, by having conversations across generations and actually listening to what the other person says.
Mhm.
And not for nothing, my generation is as guilty, if not more guilty, than any other generation of saying, whatever, I got my own thoughts, my own ideas. I know how it works. I don't need to listen to you. And
Right.
that's a recipe for disaster. And I think we're seeing it play out that way right now, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
how, why is it so challenging for someone of your age to create new relationships
Hmm.
with people? So the reason I ask that is because, like I said, we in my generation, almost all of our activities forced us around other people, athletics, school, social hangouts, all of those things were, there was no online, there was no text, there was no other way to communicate but to go out and communicate. So that's what you did.
Yeah.
And that's not what you do anymore. Why is that such a challenge for people of your generation? And that's not an insult. I genuinely
Sure.
want to understand the perspective.
No, I don't see it as an insult at all. It's a very important question. So first of all, thank you for asking it. I'm writing a new book. So my first book was about AI, which you and I have discussed at length. This next book is called The Transcendence of Money. So it's about cryptocurrency, but not about cryptocurrency in that
Mhm.
way. It's actually much more than that. And one of the things that I explore in the book um, is 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 literally how people are obviously getting fucked over by money, but how my generation perceives money in that way. And so in the book I talk about, not only how people are thinking about money, but also how is money becoming the biggest barrier and biggest friction between my generation. Easiest example, dating. And so with my generation, with my friends, it's always a big thing, not necessarily for me because I guess I'm a gentleman, but for them, they always want to talk about like 50-50 or splitting on the first date. For me, I'm never doing dinner on the first date. I'm doing drinks. That's just how I roll. And so getting a round or two of drinks on the first date, not that big of a deal for me. I'm not a hookup person, so I'm not gonna like try to get something off that. It's just, yeah, that's how I perceive being a man. I'm gonna open the door for her. I'm gonna pay my bill. I'm gonna pay our bill, and if she wants to continue, great. If not, that's no problem. But for me, I'm not going to, get pissy over that. Uh, but apart from that, the money thing is such a big barrier because it's not just dating. It's buying flowers and nails. It's like this incredibly exhaustive thing, and your bank account is now becoming, also with your social media profile, the immediate indicator of if I should even go forth with you or not. And that, to me, I don't understand that. And so when you're talking about like back in my day, like 1994, and I'm getting paid the same amount, that's some real shit. Like my mom, every single time I come back from the grocery store and I call her and she's like, "How much did you spend?" And I'm like, $80. And I show her my haul like it's fucking Christmas or something. She's like, "Oh my God, this was $30. It's so expensive." And I'm like, "Yeah, mom, number one, that was back in 1985. Yo,
Right.
like, what are you talking about? It's 2026. It's a long time later." But she like, on her, to come to her defense, she like, to her, it makes sense. Like, it doesn't make sense how these things became so much more expensive that quickly, right? Um, Another easy example is like the McDonald's dollar menu is not a dollar anymore. It's like $5, right? And people are like,
Yeah,
"Yo, what?
right.
Like, what am I paying for?" Another thing, like inflation, for example, we've all seen our favorite fast food restaurants or whatever. The products get smaller, they get shittier, less quality, et cetera, et cetera. So we have all of these things. And so when my generation is going out and trying to meet people, it's not just about the dating apps. It's not just about the technology. It's like this insecurity of, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing because I can't afford anything. I can't even move in with you. I can't afford to pay for anything crazier. As a man, I mean, as a woman, you're probably looking at somebody that's making way more, and that's usually somebody a lot older, um, which again, I guess doesn't work out the way that they think or hope. And so I've been really just tacking on this perspective of economics as the biggest barrier between people. And it's not just for the romantic sense, even for the platonic. So to go out with my friends right now, um, I always have to be cognizant of how much they're making. And so as much as I want to see my friend and yo, let's go for a drink, or we don't even have to drink, but let's just go and let's hang out. And their thing is, yo, like gas is fucking expensive, because they don't live downtown. Or if we want to go for a drink and they're good guys. And so they're not going to always let me pick up the check. And they're like, yo, I can't get it this time. And no matter how many times I'm like, dude, don't worry about it. I got you. I love you. It's still something where it's in their head. I mean, I get it. I don't know. It feels like a non-answer to say economics because it feels like it's not as it's not as tenacious. You can't firmly grip that. It's not as sexy as I'm looking at my phone constantly because that's something that we all experience. But the economics, I really do think, is going to be one of the more sinister drivers in human degradation. It's not just going to be technology that takes us away from our humanity, but it's going to be our relationship to money. And again, that's the premise of the book. That's literally why I wrote it, because I saw this vector being had of, dude, money is actually fucking over our civilization in a very serious way. And no, the answer is not fucking communism to people. That's why don't bring that up. I swear to God, my generation, it pisses me off sometimes because they'll talk about communism and they'll never talk about the Kulak massacre of the 1930s. They'll always talk about the best and the brightest stuff about communism, but when you actually give them the gory details about how parents were eating their children in Ukraine, they all love to talk about Ukraine, but they know almost nothing about the actual history of what the fuck went down. How kids were getting shot in the back of the head for picking up not corn, but the kernels that fell off the harvest. And the kids were getting shot in the back of the head for trying to feed themselves. That is communism. We can talk about the horridness of capitalism as well. But when people talk about communism and what it results in, that is the visual that you need to contend with. That is not communism at its extreme. That is what communism, capital C, is. That's my rant.
I love it. So, a couple of things I want to touch on there that you brought up, and I appreciate that perspective. Like it makes sense to me the way you described it. It's certainly not what I experienced, but again, we did this 30 years apart. That's just the reality of stuff. I love the concepts of communism and socialism. They sound fucking fantastic. They're just not real.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things I say in response to people that push communism and socialism. I understand capitalism is a terrible system. The problem is it's far better than any other system we've ever come up with. And you can list off the things that have had the biggest impact on humanity have all come from capitalism. Every single one of them. And I'm not talking about wealth. I'm talking about things like vaccines. Those were created by doctors who had a financial interest in creating them. Fertilizers, so we could feed people. Desalination of the ocean water, so we had enough water. Those were all capitalist inventions. That's why there's more people living above the poverty line than have ever lived above the poverty line in human history. That's why there's electricity in far off places. It's all because of capitalism. Is wealth inequality a problem? Maybe. I don't know. It certainly can pervert a political system if you allow it to do that. And I know that's a real problem. But in terms of like Elon Musk, what does he have? $600 billion now, which is about
750,
whatever it is, $750 billion. It's 750 billion more than I have. And I'm okay. I got an awesome wife. I got a good life. I know all sorts of good people. Does my life get worse because Elon Musk has $750 billion? I don't think so. Mm-hmm. But maybe there is a problem. I don't know the answer to that. And look, I'm an economics major. So I had to sit and listen to people who said, unless you're a doctor, you can't weigh in on COVID, even though it was math, not science, that would tell you that COVID was not a problem. I'm open. I'm open. You show me where socialism has worked. You show me where communism has worked, and I'll engage the conversation. It's the same thing I say to vegetarians. Explain these teeth to me right here. The ones that tear meat. You explain why I have those teeth. I'm not supposed to eat meat, then I'll listen to the rest of your argument. But until you can tell me why I have teeth specifically designed to tear into flesh, I'm gonna keep
Yeah.
eating flesh. That's how it works.
It's it's interesting that the absolutist argument of if you're not a doctor, you can't talk about COVID.
Right.
I mean, that's a fascinating. So if I'm not a woman, I can't talk about women? Like,
Right.
you know
Well,
what I
that's
mean?
like I listen to people that sound absolutely retarded to talk about economics.
Yeah.
Like you have no concept of what you're talking about. And
Mhm.
like I'm a business person and I have a degree in economics. So however you want to cut it, I have a ton of experience on that particular subject, which all that means is I'm smart enough to know that you need to have a lot of conversation about it because it's not as straightforward as everybody thinks it is. Some things are. Inflation is always caused by an increase in the money supply. Always. There's no
Mhm.
exception to that rule. Inflation is caused by more dollars chasing a finite amount of goods and services. That
Mhm.
will always cause inflation every single time. That's why you can't print money, socialists. That's why. And
Right.
that happens every single time that money is printed all across the country, regardless of economic system, regardless of whether it's a gold standard, doesn't matter. You start printing money, inflation will quickly follow. Period. That just does.
Mhm.
And that's indisputable. Um, so on the financial part, there's that. There's two subjects that we probably could talk on for the rest of the night, but I want to bring them up anyways. One
Let's do
is
it, dude.
gender roles,
Ah,
and I think we have sold both men and women a bill of goods on. I think the feminist movement has gone way too far and perverted both what it means to be a woman and a man. And you can call me a knuckle dragging Neanderthal all you want. I think that's why there's so many unhappy young women today, is they've
mhm.
been sold a bill of goods that you should think and live like a man does, and you're fucked if you do that, young ladies. You're fucked because you're not a man, and you're not going to be a man. You're not going to want the same thing a man wants. And is there a small group of women who think and act like men? Sure. Is there a small group of men who think and act like women? Sure, but they are statistically irrelevant as you analyze the data set of all men and all women. Men want to be admired, women want to be adored, period.
Mhm.
But you need to be a man that's worth admiring, and you need to be a woman that's adorable. And if you're
Right.
a teeth gnashing, finger pointing feminist who, why have I never heard anyone describe themselves as a strong, independent man? I've never fucking once heard that. But I
Right.
hear, I'm a strong, independent woman. Congrats. You want to fight? Like,
Right.
I can put an end to your argument real quick with a fucking right to the jaw. And when
Mhm.
you wake up, we can finish the conversation. Like, and I'm not, I would never I literally never hit a woman. I would take a beating before I hit a woman.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that I couldn't kick the shit out of any woman on the face of this planet because I could, period,
Mhm.
including the ones that fight MMA. Like, I'm 6'3", 240. They ain't going to win. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, dude, that's called being it's called being unfair.
Yeah, right.
6'3", 240.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And conversely, men have been taught to think and act like women, and they're not going to. That's why there's so many unhappy young men.
Yeah.
Like, be who you are. And in my mind, that's where that comes from. Like, when my wife and I got married, I made no money. I bought her a ring at, fuck, I think it was Walmart for $70. That was her
Mm,
engagement ring. And she married me happily because she knew that we
that's
were
the
right for
dream.
each other and she knew we could build a life together. So she didn't give a fuck that I didn't have any money now. Now, if I'd been a
Yeah.
loser and I wasn't pursuing making myself better, she would have told me to kick rocks immediately. And she should have.
Mhm.
But she knew we could get there together. And she was willing to fight and scratch and claw with me to make that happen. And so in a relationship, you've got to be willing to do both. You can't just do it when it's good. But
For
I
sure.
think the traditional gender roles largely work in most relationships. And I commend you and encourage you to continue to pay for dates, to hold
Yeah.
doors, to do
Yeah.
chivalrous things. Like, it
For
matters a
sure.
lot. There's
100%.
not, I'll share a story with you. So I never had a girlfriend in high school until my senior year. I was so involved in sports, I just didn't date. And that it wasn't because there weren't girls that weren't interested. I just never wanted to pursue it. I didn't want the distraction. I never felt strongly enough. I'm not a transactional guy, just like you. Like, that's the transactional sex has never appealed to me ever.
Yeah.
And uh, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I think you're thinking about it wrong. I think you're going to regret those decisions later in your life, but they're your decisions to make. I just knew it wasn't for me. However, I was very popular. I was a good athlete. I was good in school. I did a lot of things that carried a high social currency in the time I grew up. So a lot of girls liked me. And so when someone got elected to a homecoming court or a prom court and they didn't have a boyfriend, they would ask me to take them. There was zero romantic, and we both knew it. I was not there to try to score. They didn't want me to put the moves on them. It was a platonic, friendly date. I paid for every single one of those dates, every penny, because that's what men do. And there was one girl, she didn't know what market price meant. So we went, you go to a nice restaurant because you're in a tux and a ball gown and you go out and act like an adult for that night. She ordered a market price meal. And in 1986, our dinner cost $140.
Oh,
$140 was a lot. And I had a job since I was 12.
Oh, man.
And I took extra money and I just paid the bill and didn't say a word. And one of my friends saw it and he told her afterwards. And she's like, I feel so bad. I'm like, Megan, don't worry about it. I know you didn't do it on purpose. It is what it is. Like, we had a good time. I agreed to be your escort. That was my role for the night. I gotcha. No problem. Like, that's in my mind, there are roles that men play and roles that women play, and they're both important. They're not equal, but they're both important. The problem is people hear not equal and they think, well, one's more important than the other. Not true. They're just not the same. Not equal means not the same. That's all. For sure. But that's my thought on gender roles in relationships. And I think I largely blame the feminist movement for going too far. Like, the feminist movement was very necessary when it started. Like, women had terrible shit done to them for a long time. Totally got it. But they didn't want equality. They wanted superiority. That's what it turned into. And that's not right any more than we should have been. Like, it's my the joke I tell to piss feminists off. If women can do anything men can do, then how come they didn't subjugate another gender for centuries like we did?
But I think they're doing that right now. It's interesting because the feminist movement, I don't think, could have gone as far if men were not already being submissive towards that.
Couldn't have gone anywhere. We'd have just beat the shit out of them, told them to go back to the kitchen.
Right. Like there's something that happened with where men were and weren't were, or where men were and were not. And I personally don't understand it because I was born kind of into the tail end of the hyper feminist movement. It kind of baked itself into Gen Z.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really strange. Like one of the earlier conversations you and I were having when I was going through a pretty difficult breakup, and I appreciate your mentorship and your friendship along those fronts. Even your emails afterwards, I really do appreciate that. But when it was happening, I remember one of the last conversations I was having with my ex. It was about the roles, and I was like, you didn't necessarily, you're not a nurturing partner right now. It just seems like you want to be independent and have your cake and eat it too. And that doesn't necessarily work for me, because for me to operate at my highest level, I need to make sure that my partner is not dependent on me. Like, if you want to be independent in the relationship and us go forth together, that's the preference. You want a partner and not a pet, right? But if you're not able to hold your own, or you're not able to also be in the relationship and be a partner and make those compromises and make those sacrifices and do it for the good of the unit, then that's not something that I can continue upholding, continue going forth with. And she called it incompatibility, which I guess at the end of the day it was. But I also now kind of refer to it as, you also didn't know what you wanted and didn't know what role you could operate under. That's a really important conversation I think we should all have if you are in that situation with your partner, or before you even are in that situation with your partner, is what do you expect the relationship to look like on a day-to-day basis? And I think, especially as a man, it is a very, very important thing to talk to I'm heterosexual, so I'm just gonna say a woman, but whoever I think it is, because it's just masculine and feminine energies at the end of the day. But when I'm talking to a woman, my question is always, what are your expectations for our dynamic? And if it sounds like she wants to go forth on this kind of fluid, I want to be a little bit of masculine, a little bit of feminine, and then I want you to wrap around, then that is when I kind of pump the brakes and say, yeah, that doesn't work for me. I have a very specific role. I'm not going to change my energy to be feminine. I'm sorry, but I'm just like a very masculine being. That's where I keep my energy. And so I do have a feminine energy side because that's my emotional understanding. And so I think we need a little bit of both. We need to understand both at some level, but it's where you want to operate. I'm always a leader through and through. That's my masculine edge. Like that's what I prefer doing. I am going to lead the relationship. I'm going to make sure that I'm taking us to the best place. And I want you to not follow blindly, but you're going to follow me. And you can also be in my ear saying, watch out for the rocks, for example. It's supposed to be a fucking partnership. If you're unable to do that, that's fine. That just means that you are the wrong person for me to be with. But I need to understand that from the jump. It can't be, I'm never going to make this mistake again, but it can't be 3 months down the line and I realize you actually don't want to be in that situation because you don't know how to be in that role. You have to be very, very, as a masculine man, you have to be very, very clear on the role that not only you are taking, because by definition, being a masculine man, they will follow. A woman can only be as feminine as she wants if you are as masculine as you need to be. That's number one. Number two is that you need to set the standard and you need to go forth on what the fuck is happening right now. Let's figure it out. For some reason, especially now, the femininity of men is not like being gay or dressing a certain way. That's not being feminine. The femininity of men right now is holding back and letting the situation come to them and not addressing shit. And we've all seen this happen where we talk to a man and you're just like, dude, what is happening right now? You have no masculine edge to you. We've all experienced this. That's fine. If you want to,
it's like Zombie Land, right? It's time to nut up or shut up. It's
exactly. And that's cool. Like whatever. If you want to be a feminine man, you do your thing. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying for those that want the masculine edge and they want to be treated in that masculine way and they want a partner that is feminine, then you have to change your attitude and change your personality. It's just how it is. You look at what feminism is doing to men right now and you do the opposite.
Which is the majority of men and the majority of women, by the way. The majority of men want to be in leadership roles. They want to provide. They want to protect. The majority of women want to be nurturers. They want to be collaborators. They want to work behind the scenes to make things work as good as possible. And both of those have huge benefits when done correctly. And for men, you need to be someone that's admired. My wife has the right to expect certain things of me, right? Like we've established our roles. My role is to provide and to protect. So if there's a noise, let's just say we're upstairs sleeping and there's a noise, she sure as fuck is not going to get out of bed and go downstairs and see what it is. And I don't want her to get up and I want her to wake me up and say, I heard something downstairs. You need to go check it out. Could she do that? Yes. My wife is girly and feminine and nurturing and also one of the toughest people I've ever met. If I was in a bar fight, my wife would be one of the first people I would pick because she is tenacious. She is tough as fuck, but she's also feminine and nurturing, and that's her natural place. That's what she likes. That's where she's comfortable. I don't want her doing those things. My wife hasn't put gas in one of our cars in 25 years.
Love it.
Is she capable? Sure, of course she's capable. But I had 3 sons. A couple of my sons got in trouble at gas stations because they were like 9, 10 out pumping gas. And someone, hey, you can't do that. And they're like, talk to my dad.
Yep.
Keep pumping the gas. Like I told him, if your mom ever pumps gas, I personally will deal with you. Your mom does so much stuff for this family. She doesn't have to do things like carrying groceries and open doors and pump gas. She does all these great things for our family. We can take care of those things for her. That's a sign
Mhm,
of respect for your mother, and you're going to show it every
mhm,
single time. And it's little things like that. But by the same token, if I'm busting my ass and I come home and say, "Man, I'd really love a sandwich," my wife will happily make me a
mhm.
sandwich and say, "Know exactly what I want," or say, "Hey, how does this sound?" Because she wants to.
Is that something that you had to talk to her about, or is that something that was just kind of emerging?
No, I think we kind of figured it out pretty quickly in our relationship. I am a hard charger by nature, and I'm a leader by nature, and she is a nurturer. I think we both recognize that. It's fun. It's funny because even today, my wife and I were talking about something, and she said something about and you teach me these things, and I said, so like, I really don't like when you say that because it diminishes your intelligence, and you're so smart. I said, I get it. And I am. I've always been a good critical thinker. I've been able to control my emotions. I've been able to disassociate and compartmentalize and try to think about things in a logical way. And I try to teach other people how to do that, including her. And one of the reasons she's so good at relating to people and connecting with people is because of her tremendous emotional intelligence. Well, that can get in the way of logic sometimes, and sometimes it's good that it gets in the way of logic, because there's times I want to handle things logically and the emotional solution is the right one. And she'll say, "No, you're wrong. I got this." And I'll shut my fucking mouth and step to the back and let
Mhm,
her take the lead because she's great at it. And I would fuck it up. But there's instances where, it's like in business or in largely in politics, like illegal immigration is a perfect example of it. There's math that tells you can't allow massive amounts of people who are not a part of your society to live in your society
yeah.
and drain resources. You're going to go bankrupt, and you're going to see a huge rise in crime, in drug
Mhm,
use, in child trafficking, all of the things that go with it. And I don't care if it feels bad to eject people. Should we
mhm.
be doing it the way we're doing it? Probably not. Do we need guys in masks roughing up people? Probably not. But we also only have that because there's cities that say, "Hey, I don't care that I've got pedophiles and murderers and rapists locked up right now. You can't come into my jail and arrest them. We're going to release
Mhm,
them back out into society." Like, that's literally what's happening in American cities.
mhm.
There's no logic behind that. Those are emotional decisions made by people who are pandering to.
I lost Joe, but what he was saying, 100%, I agree with. It's not just in America, it's happening in Canada as well. Um, the suburb of Toronto I grew up in called Brampton, it's probably a little infamous right now, but it's just a bunch of Indian people from like the worst place in India called Punjab. And I say a worst place, not out of bias, but literally about the crime statistics and the gang violence that goes on there, and then the way that they treat other Indian people as well. And so if you're allowing so many people to come illegally, because I mean by definition it is illegal because um, one person from that province in India comes to Brampton, particularly, and they bring all of their family, but the family doesn't have any PR or any visas or anything, or they come on like temporary visas which expire very, very quickly, but they stay. And then you see like Canadians are completely and utterly done with Indians in Canada. And yeah, it makes total sense. I mean, when the pendulum swings one way, it will only swing the other way, with as much momentum as possible. There's this thing that people just don't fucking understand, and I don't get it, is when humans are done with something, you will know. It's not a surprising thing at all. So this response, as we were talking about, like it's kind of numb and it's all kind of surprising, but it's also very unsurprising. I feel like we forget what kind of species that we are in the way that we respond to things and how we respond to things. The way that when the pendulum does swing back and we get violent, that surprises us. I don't know. It's not just for young people. I'm probably out of my depth, but um, you know, during 2020, during the protests and stuff, that also felt like kind of a valve was being released. And 2020 is actually a really good example because it showcased how, you know, you can fuck up once, but humans will never forget. People have a very not idealistic. They have this idea that since we like got vaccinated and stuff and the pandemic happened that um it'll happen again and we'll all be forced into like this barn like animals. I don't necessarily agree. I think that, if a pandemic did happen again, which I think is more than likely to happen at some point in time, um, not just through mutation, but through biotechnology, synthetic biology. Um, for people that are interested, search up Engineering Apocalypses by Rob Reed. Um, there's a really great podcast that they talk about gene drives and synthetic biology and such. It's a really great listen. Pretty terrifying. They talk about deep fission. Um, which was disbanded. But anyway, so when the next pandemic does happen, I don't think that we're going to respond in the same way. I think it's going to be a pretty mixed reaction of I don't care, not going to happen again. No, thank you. And we're going to see what government tyranny is really like. I don't think that the ICE agents that are happening right now are, again, anything surprising. I think that when a pandemic like that does happen, and if it's an order of magnitude or above, more serious, because COVID had a fatality rate of like what 1% or something. If it's like a 60% fatality rate, it's like child killing plague or whatever, and people are still not compliant, then I feel like those ICE people are going to kick it up a notch, so to speak. Something really terrible and strange happens when humans are put under immense amounts of social pressure.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And the social pressure honestly doesn't have to be just it doesn't have to be just like through these massive catastrophic things. Again, even I feel like even I'm contributing to this at some point right now, just in the conversation of constantly bringing up like the worst things, but it's always on my mind. I can't help it. But when humans are forced to let loose, I think it could be something as simple as like a deep fake, you know, of Trump saying something or of a world leader saying something. I don't think people really appreciate. I don't mean to sway it to AI because people are also really numb to that, and I want to really appreciate that. But just for a second, I feel like people don't really appreciate how close and how easy it would be to generate a deep fake of Trump or Xi or Putin or whoever saying something pretty crazy and having that being taken seriously. I don't think it would be as much of a crazy circumstance or scenario for like a Middle Eastern conflict, for example, or a North African conflict, for example. Sorry, or for an African conflict, for example, to take effect or to completely blow up due to a deep fake. The AI technology that we have now is quite proficient at generating something wild and crazy. Um, Similarly, very, very similarly, and this is another kind of like scary thought, which is, the Renee Good video easily could have been deep faked, you know, and how long would it have taken for that to have been debunked? Especially with how people trust the government. If the White House came out and said that ICE officers never killed her and stuff like that, um, I think people would have still taken to the streets because they would have expected that to happen. There's a thing that I'm not going to tell other people to appreciate. I think I need to appreciate it, of how thin the line between societal chaos is and how much we walk that line. Eric Weinstein was talking about on the Portal podcast about how if 9/11 had been a nuclear attack, we would have understood where we were in the world or in history. And he also said that he wants to return to above ground nuclear testing, which at the surface is a crazy thing to say, like 100%. But at the same time, he's like, I think we need to really get our amygdalas in check of what kind of species we are and the power that we have, like at a button's press. That's fair. That's totally fair. There's, again, I don't mean to constantly fall back on ignorance, but there is an ignorance of where we are in history, how much power we have, how powerful this technology has, um, and you know what what we're doing with that technology. So I guess we can turn to artificial intelligence because that's my bread and butter right now, and I can talk at length about that. Social politics, while interesting, there's a numbness that we all have. There's a no real. One of the problems with social politics is that there's no answer that is ever properly come to. And that to me, like it's like there's no mathematical consensus with social politics. It's never A or not A. It's always something in the middle. It's always not. And so there's this disdain for me of constantly talking about abortion or gun rights or trans rights or gay rights or fascism or socialism, communism, all of these things. Like, for sure, between two guys and a whiskey, great conversation. But if that's what you're constantly talking about day in and day out and consuming day in and day out and commenting on day in and day out, I don't know, something just feels off about that. It feels like you're missing out on something in life. And I say that as a Gen Z.
Well, when it becomes your identity, you've got a real problem, right? Like, I think that's one of the challenges. People tie their identity to their politics now, and that's such a dangerous place to be.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same with anything. Like, is your identity whatever, a Philadelphia Eagles fan? Is your identity like, you need to have more to you as a person than just that one thing? And I know really smart, intelligent people who think the exact opposite the way I do on many political subjects, who I highly value their opinion. I don't think they're bad people. I don't think they're stupid. I know they're not stupid. I know how intelligent they are. They just see things differently and have come to a different conclusion than I have. And there's so much value in understanding why, how they think, because you got to gut check yourself all the time and say, hey, am I thinking about this the right way? Am I missing something? Have I become married to a topic without actually getting evidence and facts and data that supports it? One of the best questions people could ask themselves, in my opinion, is what evidence could someone present to me to change my mind on this subject? Like using economics. Like, that's why I'm always open on, you show me where socialism worked. You show me where communism worked. I'm wide open to that conversation. I'm challenging you because I have a lot of knowledge and history on this subject, and I don't think it exists. I've never seen it. You need to show it to me, because we've tried this over and over and over again, and I'm not willing to continue doing something over and over and over again and expect a different result,
Yeah, but then you have to contend with the fact that, like a Richard Wolff would come to you and give you myriad data for showing how communism worked in some way. And so, like,
past tense, and then it collapsed.
Right. Right. And
Like
and the thing that always happens is you start speaking past each other rather than towards, because you could, again, that's a perfect rebuttal of, yeah, but this didn't happen over an extended period of time. Like eventually it collapsed, right? And then his response, I don't know, I haven't studied Richard Wolff or anything, but his response would be something to the effect of, but it worked. And if we can just figure out a way to continue the maintenance in the middle, then everything will be peachy. And then your response would be, but in order to maintain in the middle, we would have to continue the exploitation that you think capitalism. And then you just get there constantly. There's an old joke, I think it's a Soviet joke, where it's like what's the difference between capitalism and communism? Capitalism is man exploits man, and communism is the reverse. And so, like,
right.
it's a nice, it's just a funny saying of, like, we're not going to figure any of this shit out anytime soon if we're going to talk about these things in the same ways. And that's one thing that you and I always talk about too is, let's teach young people from a very young age about these things. Like you were doing with your kids. Mom doesn't touch the gas handle. That's just something that doesn't happen. That's it. It's a very simple thing. They can ask why all the time. It could be -30 outside. Mom doesn't touch the gas handle. And I feel like we're missing out on an opportunity to teach society in very similar ways. I think that there's also an opportunity to start creating more community because we think that education is universal and objective. And we struggle with teaching kids like, hey, the education in France is going to be different from Florida. That's okay. They're different values, different societies, different cultures, different countries. That's fine. You can teach your children, you can teach the youth in different ways. And that sounds kind of cultish and religious or whatever. I just think it's something that we just have to get past. Like, for example, my kids, I don't want my daughter and my son learning the same culture things. Not in the sense of I don't want them learning how culture is, but for them to be in the same class and to learn gender roles in the same way, I think would be a little strange. I would want my daughter to be with women. I would want my son to be with men. And I would want them to learn about those gender roles in a different way. I would also want to be far more involved in their schooling. I think there is a hybrid approach where parents come in and say, no, I'm going to actually take this from, I don't want you to teach my child about sex.
Yeah.
I'm good. If you want to do a test afterwards to see if they have the necessary things, sure. I also don't know why we became so comfortable with another curriculum run by the government being the arbiters of truth for my child's world models. Different discussion, but I don't understand how that happened, especially in fucking America, where you guys just like oppose government tyranny all the time. You know what I mean? There's a lot of double standards and ironies that have happened and that have been imported into Canada, by the way. I feel I have no sanctimony on it. But yeah, there's so many things that I want to do with my kids, and I want to teach them, and I want to grow with them, and I want to make mistakes, and I want them to learn the way of the world that is just not fully interoperable with how society works right now. And that's a struggle for me. So it's either I fuck society off and I do it myself and I teach them and I homeschool them, or we can spend the time right now and talk to smart folks like you and talk to the community and build something like that. Joe, and I forget where you are, but I'm in Montreal right now. I think Quebec would be a really great place for an experiment. Let's just try. Let's try and fail.
Yes.
First attempt at learning is fail.
Yeah, no, that's and that's exactly how all progress gets made. When you think about anyone who's made progress in society, it's been by bucking societal norms. Like just by definition, you have to buck societal norms in order to make progress. And so like that's a great segue into the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. So Elon Musk, so the way I try to explain it to people, like I'm not an Elon Musk sycophant, but the guy's a brilliant guy. I mean, he has founded several companies that were light years ahead of industries and things that didn't exist, electric cars and space travel and interplanetary communication with Starlink and et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you wanted to talk about relationships and child rearing, Elon Musk is not your guy. You should listen to me, not Elon Musk. I think I got that one covered. He's got the business part down. But he said
100%.
on a podcast a little while ago, within the next 20 years, he doesn't think retirement will matter. Money
Mhm.
won't matter because we will have produced such good technology that technology will produce the things necessary to run our society in abundance: healthcare, education, food, transportation. All of those things will be provided at next to no cost. And your identity will no longer be tied to your job, to your career, and you're not going to need to worry about money nearly to the extent we have to worry about it today. I tend to believe a guy like Elon Musk when he says that, because he's been right a lot more than he's been wrong about those future predictions, especially around technology. So that begs the question, what do you do 20 years from now when you don't have
Yeah.
to go to a job every day? What happens? And if where we're at today is indicative of the way people kind of collapse under the pressure of what does it all mean,
Mhm.
when you take away something as real and central as your profession, where does that leave mankind? And I know this is a topic
Yeah.
you think, talk, and write a lot about, so I'm curious to hear
Okay.
your take on that particular subject.
100%. I've been getting really into writing short stories, and so I wrote a short story called Utopia. It's available on my site. I'll email it to you afterwards.
That'd be great.
Um, I think you'd really enjoy it. But it talks about that, when everything is done, what do humans do? It just takes a completely different spin on it. I actually really go against not just Musk, but anybody that's saying that post-scarcity societies are a thing. Not because I don't want it to be per se, but I think that there are a lot of hoops that you have to jump through in order to just say it's going to happen. Like, for example, for the robots, um, sure, he probably can create robots that will outnumber humans eventually and be able to do all the work and everything, but they don't even have the factory infrastructure up and running yet, you know? So like it just simple stuff like that. Number two is like, okay, great. So you have the robots, you have the factories, all of that. And then how do you get the economies around the world to just like not be run on money? Like how does that switch? And again, like we can continue talking about this and wrestling with the ideas, but just stuff like that, that to me, it doesn't necessarily make as much sense as the assumption is. But I'm cool with that. So let's just forget all of that and focus on the question: what do humans look like in 20 years? My friend Natalia, she was talking to me. This is one of our first coffee conversations, and she was talking to me about the washer and dryer. And she was saying that before in like the late 1800s, in order to wash clothes or in order to do laundry, it would take 2 days, 48 hours. It would take one day to go all the way down to the river, lug everything, wash everything by hand. Take another day to put everything up and dry it, right? So that's 48 hours in 2 days. Then came along the washer and dryer, washing machine and drying and dryer, which reduced the 48 hours it took to do laundry into two. That's a net positive of net gain of 46 hours. And so did we fill it with art and philosophy and wine and social? No, you know, we just filled it with more stuff. AI, for example, is a great example. Like I can generate an email like that, right? Um, I don't need to. I can generate documents and everything. And did I save any time? Did the work week reduce from 40 hours to 4? No, we just have higher and higher expectations. And so for me, do I think that the post scarcity society happens and we'll just do art and philosophy all day? I honestly don't think so. I think that in that transition, we'll find something else to do. I think that, with this promotion of video games and streaming services and content online, I think honestly that doom scrolling and video games being lost in virtual worlds, the meta glasses, the Apple Vision Pro headsets, I think those would take off. I don't see how, given just hours and hours of free time and the addiction that we all have to our devices in some real way, I don't see how that wouldn't get worse. And I don't even mean to be cynical, but it's just, so my friend, good buddy of mine, he spends about 5 hours a day on Instagram. Like no shit, no joke, 5 hours. And
Oh,
that's on a weekday. On a weekend, it's upwards of 8 hours,
oh.
right? And he's still watching porn, he's still watching streaming services, all of that. And so you think about it, and he has a girl, like all of that. Do I expect him, if he's not working, to go to a fucking museum? No shot. No shot. Um, all these, as we're streaming right now, there's a bunch of gamers streaming and playing video games and such. And if they didn't need to do that for money or whatever, would they turn the video game off? I honestly don't think so. I remember the first time I used to play Minecraft a lot. And my friend came over. I swear to God, Joe, I swear on my life, we spent 8 hours straight playing Minecraft. My eyes were watering, and I couldn't take my eyes off the game. That was my first introduction.
My youngest son played Minecraft like that back in the day.
Dude, like like not just Minecraft, but like these things are addictive. We don't like, we take it for granted, and we've heard it for so long that these things are addictive, but like we need to really admit that, yeah, we're playing with heroin every single time that we're going on these things. It's literally called, digital heroin, electric cocaine, by the executives that build it, by the way. This isn't the skeptics. This is the executives, because it's their excuse for not giving it to their kids. That's where I see in 20 years, if the post-scarcity society happens in the way that the oligarchs, as it were, as they expect it to.
Yeah, I think it would be one of the best things that we could do for society is to force everyone to read like Henry David Thoreau on Walden Pond and Self-Reliance. Who's that? T.S. Eliot? Was it T.S. Eliot that wrote Self-Reliance?
I'm not good at that one. No.
My whole point is there is nothing better than things that occur naturally in the world. And there's no way to describe it. A beautiful sunset or sunrise when you're out, when the sun first comes up on a spring or a summer day, or the fall foliage in New England if you're driving down a kind of windy highway. Getting a little personal, like I love the curve of my wife's hip. I love to like put my hand right on the curve of her hip and pull her close to me, and to feel her pressed up against me with my hand on her hip. That's one of the best feelings in the world. And you can't get those in VR. You can't get those through a video game. You can't experience those through watching porn. You experience those things in real life. And I think we need to kind of force that on people. I saw a video one time, and like they did a good job of it. So someone said, I don't feel very good. And then a person off camera started asking him a series of questions. Did you get enough sleep? No. Did you drink water? No. Have you gone outside? No. Have you talked to anyone else today? No. Have you exercised? No. Did you eat a good breakfast? No. Like so much of what's wrong with people could be cured with a couple good nights sleep and a couple of healthy meals and a couple of walks. Yeah. Like literally those three things could solve most people's mental issues. If you just did those on a regular basis, you'll be shocked how your outlook on life will change if you just do those things. They're free. They're available to everyone. Like it's tough. Like right now, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. So there's a huge storm coming through, and it's going to be bitterly cold for 4 or 5 days, and a potential for a lot of snow. So like getting outside is going to be tough here because it's literally life or death with the wind chill. But for almost everybody, you can do those things on such a regular basis, and you should. Like if you make those a part of your habits. It's funny. I did Dr. Anbar's show yesterday. I was
nice.
on his show. I know you know him. And he asked me he said, what was your 3 things to recommend to people to help, like their mental outlook and improve their lives? And so I said, sleep. Like I am a guy, right, wrong, or indifferent, for literally decades of my life. I would regularly get 5 hours of sleep or less a night because I was
Oh
grinding
wow.
all the time on work, on extracurricular stuff that I liked. And I'm like, I'm not a, me, I'm not a drinker. I don't cat
Yeah.
around. I don't do any of that stuff, but I love competing. So I'd play sports or I would put together other businesses or those kind of things. And I regularly got less than 5 hours of sleep. Like for months at a time, I would go not have a night where I got more than 5 hours of sleep. That's not good for you. It's very unhealthy. And I
Yeah.
know that now. And I'm trying to tell people that still do it to quit doing it. Like it's not worth the trade off. I'm telling you, as someone who's done it. So mine was sleep. It was get outside every day, like sunlight hitting your skin, the wind hitting your face, the smells, the sounds of nature, whether it's birds chirping or water running or the leaves rustling from the wind. Doesn't matter what it is so calming and so grounding. It's so important to do every day. And then the last one was just to live from a place of gratitude. It's so
Mhm.
easy for us to get caught up in all the things that are bad. Like,
Yeah.
think about how many good things and how lucky you are to be where you are right now. Like, if you were going to be a human being, there's literally never been a better time to be alive on the face of the earth than today, right now, regardless of where you live. Like, there's life expectancy is longer than it's ever been. There's more people living above the poverty line than have ever been. Even
Mhm.
with everything you see on TV, it's one of the most peaceful periods in the history of the world. Uh, most people can get medical care when they need it. Food is abundant. Water is abundant. Most people are healthy. Like even basic stuff. You were born with 2 good arms and 2 good legs and health. Like that's such a like. There's people with cystic fibrosis that don't have what you have. There's people who
Mhm.
are born without limbs that don't have what you have. Be grateful for that every day. If you do those 3 things and you focus on those 3 things, watch the domino effect it has on your life. I am telling you, it matters so much. And those are all
Mhm.
things completely within everyone's control, but they refuse to take control of them.
Yeah, it's this dismissal that the simple can supersede the complex. It's so funny to me how if an alien came down and it's like, what are you guys suffering from as a species? We're like, we're not eating properly, we're not sleeping properly, we're not hydrating properly. And the alien's like, oh man, like, are you guys suffering from a scarcity problem? It's like, no, we actually have everything in abundance. It's just we don't do it. And the alien's like, I don't understand this planet. Um, but yeah, no, it's a very simple on the surface, it's a simple thing. I think to somebody like you who has a lot of discipline, it's a very simple thing. But especially for my generation, I don't mean to continue talking about the difference, but like I think for young people, it's difficult. It's perceived as difficult because they didn't grow up with any discipline because it was so frictionless to be online. They don't see it as another act. For you to be online in this addictive way, there would be so much friction, like your body would scream. You, Joe. Like I don't even think you would be able to do it, let alone download the Instagram application unless you're going to post something. I don't think you'd be able to sit there and doom scroll. You're like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm going to go talk to my beautiful children or grab my wife's hip. You would not want to be there. But for my generation, we don't see it as a different external act. We actually see it as just something that I'm going to do, like breathing or like eating. And so it's kind of re-explaining to them in some way and trying to like make that action less sticky and less addictive. And it's also, again, as we're talking about, when you're online constantly, you get really warped views on reality, like completely warped. You get warped views on how you should look, how you should talk, how you should think, how you should dress, etc., etc. And so when you're coming back to it, if you're constantly eating Snickers bars all day, going back to a salad tastes horrible. If I'm online constantly and I come back and like I don't have the nicest couch or like the biggest TV or like you know even like watching porn, if my genitalia does not look like that, I get that mental scar, you know? Y-
Where
Dude,
do they
I
find
can't
these
tell
guys,
you.
anyways?
Oh my God, exactly, right? Like, I swear to God, dude, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had recently with guy friends who have been like, I have um size issues. I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, I get insecure about size. And I'm like, has a girl ever commented on this? Like, has this been generated by somebody? Because that's a wrong thing to happen to you. And they're like, no, it's just no, the guy's in porn. I'm like, dude, that's not real. It's like, yo, it's like you saying I'm insecure about the way I drive because I can't drive like Vin Diesel and Fast and the Furious. And
Right?
somebody looking at you like, yo, you're not supposed to drive like that. What are you talking about? This is the thing is I think we're living in a reality that just it's self-imposed that it doesn't make any sense. And for somebody like you to come out and say, have a glass of water, eat some fucking macadamia nuts, and go to sleep. It's a really important message. It's a really blunt message, and it's a really important message. That's the thing that I feel like is missing from society is people like you and me who kind of understand and see what is wrong with the world. Not fully and not absolutely, but we have our opinions, and our opinions probably line up to reality a lot more because we've talked about it and we can be cognizant on where our blinders are. But when we're talking to people, there's a need for dominance in some way. There's a need for strong men to not just strong men, leaders, whether they're men or they're women.
Yep.
There's a need for leaders to come in and say, guys, let's fix this. Not in the fascist or authoritarian way, but in the collaborational. What's going on? Let's talk about it. Let's fix it. Let's move on. Let's move forward.
Well, and you can look at nature to verify that because there's no natural vacuum in nature.
Yeah,
Whenever there's free space, it gets filled immediately. Stuff rushes to
dude.
fill that space. So in the absence of leadership or in the absence of structure, something's going to rush in and fill that. You, as a person, have a choice on what that is. And I don't have all the answers. I don't know everything. I sell groceries for a living. I'm not a psychologist. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. None of those things. But I know I'm right when I say if you get enough sleep, you eat good food, you get outside every day, and you develop good relationships, you're going to live a pretty fucking awesome life. I know I'm right. I know it doesn't take more than those 4 things.
It doesn't. It doesn't. But, the fucking awesome life is not compared to like the private jets and the mansions and everything. That's where I think we're getting a little skewed over as people is we've also forgotten how little we need as humans. We've stopped valuing family and friends and all of that. And that's really good. That's really, really good because we can go back to that really easily. We can show people.
Have you ever been on a private jet?
I have not, no.
I worked for a company that had planes, so I've been on private jets hundreds of times.
Oh, yeah? Is it a fun experience? You don't care about the experience?
I could have given a shit other than it is so convenient. So instead of having to go commercial and pack a bag, you go through security and blah, blah, blah. You literally show up at a hangar. They take your bag, put it on the plane. You walk up to the plane, you take off. You're there for 10 minutes. Everybody shows up, you take off. You get done with whatever you're doing. You call the pilot and say, hey, we're on our way back. Fire the plane up. And they have it out of the hangar. The same exact thing happens in reverse. You fly home, you get in your car and you leave. So it's uber convenient. That part's really, really nice. Other than that, whatever. Like, and look, it was a business plane, so we didn't have the sexy stewardesses serving champagne and strawberries to everybody. Typically, the pilot stopped and got like Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwiches and a tub of coffee and said, fend for yourselves. But like the convenience of it was awesome. It was so good. But my point is it's overrated. Like, it just reminds me of a joke just on human nature. So who's I got one. So there's a shipwreck and this guy winds up on an island. It's just him and Sydney Sweeney. They wind up marooned on this island, right? And so they're there for a couple of years and nature takes its course and they're both young, healthy people and they start being intimate with each other. And so after a couple of years, she says, hey, is there anything that I can do for you that'll really make you happy? And he says, yeah, there is actually. He says, hey, will you put on my shirt? So she puts on his shirt. And he says, hey, will you put on my jeans? And so she puts on his jeans. He goes, hey, will you put on my hat? So she puts on his hat, and he walks up to her and he goes, hey, I'm fucking Sydney Sweeney. So like he couldn't just appreciate it. If nobody knows about it, it's not good enough. And like that's human nature, and you got to get past all that stuff and just enjoy the fact that, hey, in that particular situation, like score, I'm on a marooned island with a totally hot chick who thinks the world, the sun rises and sets in my underwear. This is a win for me. I don't care who knows about it. I'm going to fully enjoy the experience. And we've kind of lost that as it doesn't count if you didn't post it somewhere. It's so wild.
It's this disrespect for the present moment. So one of the things about being an artist, I think, and also being creative and in some ways being spiritual is respecting the present moment and not needing anything to fill that. It's one of the reasons why I think meditation and stuff like yoga have come into the foray, even in the wrong ways in the Western world. And I say the wrong ways because to do the act is not necessarily enough. It's about understanding the philosophy and the spirituality and making it a full body thing rather than just something you do between, like, on your lunch break. I guess that's a different conversation. But having respect for the present moment and wanting to experience the present moment is very difficult because it's very uncomfortable. And the society that we've constructed is taking you away from discomfort. It's frictionless and it's convenient in every single way: food, sex, water, entertainment.
Right. It's funny. I've never really thought about that way because I live in the present moment a lot. Like I love it. Like there's times where I think a couple times a day, man, this is pretty awesome. Or, hey, I got to fight through this. This is not awesome. I got to just fight through this spot right. It's not always rainbows and unicorns. I live in the real world like everybody else does. There's times where it sucks, but even the longest day is 24 hours, period. Like that's just fact. Even the longest day in the world is 24 hours. You just got to get through it. It'll get better.
The sun doesn't stop for no one.
That's right.
Yeah. It's when you realize that the world is actually not trying to fuck you over, there's a lot of the pressure is kind of taken off. This is the thing about being narcissistic from social media, is that you feel like everything is happening to you. It's not, and then you start realizing, for example, and I'll be personal about this. I was going through a really difficult time from October, and it was very interesting how life was forcing me literally to start opening up to people and not be so independent and not be dependent on people, but just talk to my fellow humans, talk to my friends about it, talk to my family about it, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw that as I was more open and more present in the moment, life got easier. At least my perception of the situation got easier. And then I realized that the entire point, the entire teachable moment, if you will, was for me to be in the present moment and allow others to be in the present moment with me. That was the entire lesson. And so I guess, if we were to close out the wonderful chapter that we've just done right now, it would be figure out a way to live in the present moment and don't regret it. Don't feel like you're missing out on anything. FOMO is just in your mind. That fear does not exist. Live in the present moment. Talk to the people that you love. Tell them that you love them every single fucking day. Even if they don't say I love you back, it doesn't matter. You call your friends, especially your male friends, you'd be like, yo, I fucking love you. I don't give a shit. It's not gay. You're not a pussy. It's none of that. That is how you change the world. Changing the world is not just doing the Elon Musk thing and getting us to Mars. It's about being the most authentic version of yourself every single goddamn day and feeling good about that. That's all I have.
Couldn't agree more. And look, on the gay thing, I don't understand why anyone thinks it's bad to be gay. What's the what the fuck? It's so weird to me. But anyhow, Ayush, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. Appreciate you fighting through the technical difficulties. There was something with my computer. It was definitely my computer, not the platform. So I'll get it figured out so that the next time we do this somewhere down the road, you don't have to carry the baton for long stretches while I'm trying to get back in. But really appreciate you coming on. Always enjoy our conversations. Hope you're all good. And until next time, have a good night.
All right. Thank you, brother. Can't wait to be here again.
Thanks
Cheers.
again. All right, guys. So we're going to wrap it for tonight. Appreciate you coming on. Apologize for the technical difficulties. It's our first night on the platform, and I had something that kept happening with my computer. No big deal. Huge thanks to Ayush for coming on. So you can see why we like Ayush so much. He's a thoughtful guy, and just really, really love getting his thoughts and hearing about how he thinks about the world, because it's good for us to think about it in a different way. So more episodes to follow. We're going to do the live stream every Thursday night at 6 p.m. Really appreciate those who tuned in or are still with us. We'll continue to see that audience grow over time as we do this on a regular basis. We'll have a guest on. We'll talk about topics that are important to us or that we feel like talking about that night, and hope you're able to join us next time. So until then, carry on. Thanks again, guys.